Is it worse to lie to yourself or to lie to others? This morning, as I was enjoying some coffee, I decided to kind of have a shot of Whistle Pig Piggyback in it, and I was enjoying it. The idea popped in my head for some reason. The thought: is it worse to lie to yourself or lie to others? As I was thinking about it and mulling over my head, it reminded me of a section that I read from this book, This Idea is Brilliant. And I had talked about this book briefly in another episode, but I wanted to go ahead and talk about it once more. So let me go ahead and see if I can find the chapter really quick. And I kind of just, something I've been thinking about a lot lately. How often do we lie to ourselves? This particular chapter is page 83. It's Intellectual Honesty from Sam Harris. It's a very short little couple pages, and this is the reason I like this book so much, because you can kind of go through and read some different things. So this is Intellectual Honesty, Sam Harris. Whenever we look, we find ourselves... Sorry, I'll start over. Whenever we look, we find otherwise sane men and women making extraordinary efforts to avoid changing their minds. Of course, many people are reluctant to be seen changing their minds, even though they might be willing to change them in private, seemingly on their own terms, perhaps while reading a book. This fear of losing face is a sign of fundamental confusion. Here it's useful to take the audience's perspective, tenuously clinging to your beliefs, past the point where their falsity has been clearly demonstrated does not make you look good. We've all witnessed men and women of great reputation embarrass themselves in this way. I know at least one eminent scholar who wouldn't admit to any trouble on his side of a debate stage were he to be suddenly engulfed in flames. If the facts aren't on your side or your argument is flawed, any attempt to save face is to lose it twice over. And yet many of us find this lesson hard to learn. To the extent that we can learn it, we acquire a superpower of sorts. In fact, a person who surrenders immediately when shown to be in error will appear not to have lost the argument at all. Rather, he will merely afford others the pleasure of having educated him on certain points. Intellectual honesty lets us stand outside ourselves and think in ways that others can and should find compelling. It rests on the understanding that wanting something to be true isn't a reason to believe that it is true. Rather, it's further cause to worry that we might be out of touch with reality in the first place. In this sense, intellectual honesty makes real knowledge possible. Our scientific culture and moral progress is almost entirely the product of successive acts of persuasion. Therefore, an inability or refusal to reason honestly in a social problem, indeed, to defy the logical expectations of others or disregard the very standards of reasonableness that you deemed of them, as a form of hostility. And when the stakes are high, it becomes an invitation to violence. In fact, we live in a perpetual choice between conversation and violence. Consequently, few things are more important than a willingness to follow evidence and arguments wherever they lead. The ability to change our minds, even on important points, especially on important points, is the only basis for hope that the human cause of human... I'll start over. The ability to change our minds, even on important points, especially on important points, is the only basis for hope that the human causes of human misery can be finally overcome. Go ahead and think about that for a minute while I have a sip of this. So one of the things that I tried to tell myself at the start of this new year's was to kind of step back and think about things, from a more critical nature. Try to get an idea better, understand better what other people were thinking and feeling, because we've slowly getting to a culture where, we spend more time, energy, and resources arguing about what we don't agree on than the 90% of stuff that we tend to agree on. And this is one of those things where it's not your standard, whiskey nerd gain stuff type thing. But this popped in my head as I was drinking coffee this morning. I thought it was an interesting idea, a nugget that I was, thinking about, a thread that I was pulling. I'm sure I'll talk to it about this with a couple friends today. and I thought I would share this with those that watch these videos. Again, this was Whiskey, Games, and Nerd Stuff. If this particular chapter was intriguing to you and something that you want to talk about, I really would recommend this book. It's got a ton of cool stuff in there. I mean, this could be a whole night's worth of conversations with friends just to talk about this one thing. If you like the content or my other content, please feel free to like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, cheers.